Hello, class. I want to cover a couple of PowerPoints and talk about credibility for your sources. How do you evaluate your sources for credibility? So let's go ahead and click into our Module 3, and we'll click into Week 10. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to look at the Evaluating Sources PowerPoint. And I will cover that briefly with you. Let's launch that PowerPoint. Okay, let me go ahead. And so we're going to start talking about why are we evaluating sources. So but we need to back up and say, why do we use sources in the first place? Bottom line is, you as students are not experts, and in order to give evidence to your claims in your research papers or any paper, you need to find sources by authors who are experts, and you present facts, statistics, information that back up your claim. And so why do we want to assess our sources? Because information can be out of date. Sometimes it's misinformation, particularly when you're dealing with websites. Maybe there's a bias in the source. So you just want to look at your source and ask yourself, is this the best source that I could possibly use? So typically in college, you're going to use journal articles, conference papers, books, but occasionally you're going to be asked to use websites, brochures, even blogs. So, but these in this blue box are most typical when you're in college. And so one other aspect we want to talk about is the difference between a primary source and a secondary source. So, primary sources are what we call the original material. So if you're thinking about in literature, the primary source is, say, the poem or the novel or the play, whereas the secondary source with literature would be the, let's flip over here, back up, this was the page I wanted. The secondary source would be the journal article written about that book. So primary source, when you're talking about scientific papers, are the actual data and the surveys and the questionnaires. And you as a student will probably never really look at that primary source when you're talking about scientific data. You'll always use secondary sources because you don't really have the expertise to interpret that information. All right, so when you use, primarily in a paper like you're writing for this class, you are going to be using secondary sources. You're going to be using those journal articles, newspaper articles, textbooks, things of that nature. The next point we talk about is, when we're thinking of sources, is scholarly versus non-scholarly. So those scholarly sources are written by academicians, people who are writing kind of high quality research type work. And the non-scholarly sources are more what we think of as popular sources. So something like Time magazine versus a scholarly journal. And when you're writing a paper for a college class, whether it's your English class or your sociology class or psychology, you're going to be asked to find typically peer-reviewed scholarly journal articles. And in our paper, we have 2 of those that you need to have. And scholarly sources, usually there are not many images. It's usually, if there are, they're things like graphs and tables, but there won't be pictures. So they're usually long. They're usually divided into sections. So they're pretty easy to identify. And the non-scholarly sources are magazines, newspapers, periodicals, typically things that are written to make money. And so you can think of the New York Times, Time Magazine, The Economist, and these aren't necessarily not credible sources. They are credible sources. They're just not scholarly sources. And so they're not written usually by experts. They're usually written by journalists and people who their profession is writing. So again, when you are looking at your print sources, the main things you're going to ask yourself are who is the author? Is it university-based or research institution? Does it look like these print sources have a good bibliography so they show you what their sources are? Is the information presented in a way that you can understand it? Does the author explain the methodology, and do they is it current? Is it relevant today? Okay, so these are the questions, but we have a whole worksheet, and we're going to get to that in a second with all these questions. And when you are looking at electronic sources like websites and things of that nature, blogs, you want to ask yourself questions like, oh shoot, who's responsible for that site? Is it associated with a respected organization or institution? Who's responsible? So is it a government website? Is it a university website? If you notice things like incorrect grammar spelling and it's old and out of date, especially if they have links that no longer work, I would question those websites, that they're probably not very valid anymore. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll get out of this. And all right, so the next thing I want to show you is, let's go back to our announcement. All right, so reviewing that, we just reviewed our evaluating sources PowerPoint. Now we're going to take a look at this CRAP worksheet. CRAP stands for Credibility, Relevancy, Authority, Accuracy, and Purpose. You need to evaluate all 5 of your sources, and you're going to do that by using this worksheet. You can find it here, or under week 10, you can find it right here. So let's go ahead and click into that. So this is your next step. You have this worksheet as a handout. I gave you 5 of these all stapled together. So you are going to go through this checklist and ask each one of these questions about each one of your 5 articles, and you will end up with a score, and this score will tell you how valid and credible and relevant your source is. So once you complete this little checklist, this worksheet for each one of your sources, your next step, let's go back to your announcement, is to begin to write your analysis paragraph. If you remember, your annotation will have 2 paragraphs, a summary paragraph, we talked about that on Tuesday, and an analysis paragraph. So that paragraph will take all of that information from that CRAP checklist, and you will write 5 sentences. They're very specific. The first sentence in that analysis paragraph will comment on the credibility and the trustworthiness of the author. What are the credentials and the background of the author or authors? The second sentence of that analysis paragraph will comment on the credibility and trustworthiness of the journal, including the date of the article. So you will write a sentence telling me what kind of journal this article came from. How is it a credible journal? The third sentence will comment on the evidence and the information presented in the article. So in other words, does it have charts or tables or references or interviews, quotes? So what kind of information does that article present as its evidence? The fourth sentence, you're going to tell me how you plan to use this article in your paper, very specifically, which section and promoting which viewpoint. The final sentence, you will find one good quote from that article that you can use in your paper. You'll introduce that quote with a signal phrase and put quotations around it, quotation marks around it, and include the page number. That those 5 sentences will become your analysis paragraph. So, once you've written those 5 sentences on each of your 5 articles, you will put those together with the MLA citation, the summary paragraph, the analysis paragraph to form an annotation. All right, so let's go back to week 10. All right, so each annotation is going to consist of the properly formatted MLA citation. It will include the 7 to 9 sentence summary paragraph, the 5 sentence analysis paragraph. Once your annotations are completed, you'll compile all 5 of your completed annotated bibliographies in alphabetical order in a single Word document. That annotated bibliography must be typed, double-spaced, with Times New Roman 12-point font. You ask, how do I know how to formulate a citation? You will open this quick guide. You'll scroll down and you will find which of these samples matches your article. Do you have one author? Do you have 2 authors? 3 or more? So you will then look for the appropriate template and you will make sure your article citation is properly formatted. I recommend you use those citation tools at the libraries when you use your database. Invariably, there's a citation tool. Make sure you check MLA and that you can then copy that into your annotated bibliography and then just double check that you've gotten everything done right. Use this database or this quick guide to double check that. All right, so back to week 10. So once you have your annotated bibliography properly formatted, you submit it here. Your instructions, I have them again here. You click on this and you submit your annotated bibliography. All right. Let's go back to your announcement. So here's your sample annotated bibliography. We'll open that real quick. This is going to show you how yours should look. All right. Your bibliography should look like this bibliography. This bibliography has 4 sources. It's alphabetized. If you notice, here's your MLA citation. This first paragraph is the summary paragraph. The second paragraph is the analysis paragraph. And you notice it's double-spaced. First paragraph, here's your citation. Summary paragraph. Analysis paragraph. Double-spaced. Citation. Summary paragraph. Analysis paragraph. So that is exactly how your annotated bibliography should look. All right, I'm going to close this up. All right. And don't forget you have a reading response due. All right, so read this announcement thoroughly. You can go ahead and watch these 2 videos a second time that we watched in class. If you're wanting to watch those again to get more information, they're under week 10. So go ahead and view those videos. Here's your quick guide. Here's your sample. Here's all the documents you need to make your annotated bibliography. Here's all your PowerPoints for the week. We did not do this for this particular class, but we covered this in the Southwest class. But for the Northside class, don't worry about this in-class reading. All right, so any questions, feel free to email me and I will get back with you as soon as I can.